Well, I've been away a long time. Yeah, I really should explain myself. It really comes down to when I'm stressed out, I can't read. And, well, if I can't read, what do I have to record? So that's why I'm still plodding along little by little with Moby Dick after, 6 months now. It comes down to, I think in the last recording I made, I had just changed jobs. Well, since then, I changed jobs again. And, with that, I had all the worry in my prior job, which caused me to leave. And then now that I'm in a new job, well, there's all the worry of learning new things and being the new guy and not knowing how things are. So it's not very conducive for me actually reading. But all the same, I don't want to just let this channel be abandoned. I do enjoy talking about books, even if I don't get the chance to read them all the time. And so I thought, let me just make a quick recording about an old book I read a few years ago, which actually has become slightly more timely now. I'm talking about a book called "The Most Dangerous Animal of All: Searching for My Father and Finding the Zodiac Killer." And the reason why I say this is timely, even though the book is, how many years old? Several years old. I mean, I probably read this, I don't know, 4 years ago? Probably 4 years ago, maybe 5 years ago. Because I remember I was working up in San Francisco at the time, riding Caltrain every day, and I definitely remember sitting on the benches there on Caltrain, reading this, and actually enjoying it quite a bit. But I'll get into that in a sec. The reason why I say it's timely, even though the book is old, is because a few months back, a documentary was made about this book. But interestingly enough, the documentary didn't just cover the material that's in this book. It actually ended up debunking what was in this book. The authors are Gary L. Stewart and Susan Mustafa. Gary Stewart is the guy who believes that his father was a Zodiac killer. And he spent, several years doing research, trying to find out who his father was. And then once he started to suspect he was a Zodiac killer, he kind of pursued that line in his research, trying to connect this man to those crimes. And Susan Mustafa, I believe she's just a ghost writer he hired. But a documentary that was aired on FX took a look at his research. They went through the book and they tried to essentially replicate what he did. And it turns out that his research was flawed. Now I don't remember I don't know if they made the charge that it was intentionally flawed or maybe just accidentally flawed or well, what I remember from I should clarify. I haven't watched the documentary. Everything I know about this situation comes from just the articles I read online. But the impression I was left with is that Gary Stewart, well, he made some flaws in his research that, could maybe be interpreted as someone wanting things to turn out, to be a bigger deal than they were in real life. And, well, I feel like that jibes with my reading of this book years ago, before there was any documentary even being talked about. Now, I said this was a good book, and I mean it. On the narrative level, I think Susan Mustafa did a good job writing this. Very crisp, clear writing, engaging. When I was reading it, I was definitely interested in plowing ahead with this. So on that level, great read. I really enjoyed it. What I didn't really, I shouldn't say I didn't enjoy, but I'd say some trouble spots I remember from reading this. There were two things in there that made me kind of raise my eyebrow and really question the validity of this book. One of which comes from his Stewart's stepfather, and two comes from the DNA evidence from the SFPD, San Francisco Police Department. So first, the story as I remember it, and remember, I'm just this is my memory from several years ago, so don't feel like, oh, please don't give me a gotcha moment in the comments. But what I remember is that at the beginning of the book, Stewart is kind of giving the rough outline of who this man is, Earl Van Best. He talks about how he met Stewart's mother, how abusive he was, his trips around the country. I think they met in I think Van Best met Stewart's mother in California. I think she was underage too. He took her to was it Baton Rouge? Tried to abandon infant Stewart, and his mother ended up getting the infant back, getting him back, and eventually running off. But the idea, the summary being, clearly this guy was an awful human being, and his mother was lucky and fortunate to get away with him. But she ends up back in San Francisco, and she has her Gary, her young son, there, and eventually, though, and this is the first trouble spot. This woman, the single mother, meets. Goodness, I wish I could remember his name. Was it Rotia? I think he was a notable. I'm not going to say famous. I'm sure most people would not know his name, but he was notable in the SFPD in the mid 20th century, 60s, 70s. She meets this man. They fall in love. They get married, and as I was listening, reading this part of the book, I kind of had to sit back and roll my eyes a bit, because it comes off to me as the story of a damaged, hurt person who is trying to, I guess, make their life have more meaning, more story to it. Real life is boring. It's unusual to get a story where a happy ending, kind of, where you start with this piece of crap guy who tries to abandon you, who beats on your mother, but then she meets this wonderful semi-famous guy here, kind of a big deal in local San Francisco politics, and she and he get plugged into that whole world. And then on top of that the first horrible guy is then one of the most famous serial killers out there. It's just too much. Just too much for me to believe. But whatever. So that was the first time I raised my eyebrow in this book. And then towards the end of the book, I think it was maybe the second to last, or maybe the last chapter, I don't know. Stewart gets to the part where he's talking about the DNA evidence that was extracted from the stamp on one of the letters that came from the Zodiac Killer. I think I want to say it's approximately 2003. The SFPD has finally been able to, the technology improved enough that they could get a DNA sample from this stamp. And, obviously Stewart then turns his focus to, how can I get access to this? I want to compare it to my own DNA, of course. This could be the conclusive proof I need to show that this terrible man, that I'm related to this terrible man. Well, this was the other thing that really bothered me. SFPD, of course, never gives him official access to this DNA profile. But the story told in the book is, and sorry, this is a few years old, so I can't remember who this was, but someone high up in the SFPD pulls Stewart aside, sits down with him, and never actually outright, well, if my memory isn't wrong, never outright says, yes, you are related to this person. Never says that. But they strongly imply that it is likely he is, that he would be, related to him if they were allowed to publicly release this. And so the end of the book is Stewart having a mostly satisfying end where he's, reasonably assured that he's right, and he hopes that someday he'll be able to conclusively prove when this DNA evidence is released to the public, and so on. And again, just as a story, it's well written, and I enjoyed it, and it didn't take me long to get through this book. But those 2 points, marrying that notable San Francisco police officer that's all plugged into San Francisco politics, and then the whole, DNA thing at the end of just being privately assured. Whatever. Just, yeah. When this book was, years old, I didn't really buy it then. And, I guess, what can I say? Not to pat myself on the back too much, but hey, my instinct was right. And now we have this documentary crew coming along to actually prove otherwise. And I guess it kind of paints a conflicted feeling in me. Do I really want to hold on to this book? I don't really like the idea of throwing out books. I don't know, that just makes me cringe. But on the other hand, now that I know this book is BS, would I want to hold on to it? Or would I even want to give it to someone else to read? Who wants to read a book knowing that the conclusion is false? So, I don't know if I should just leave it on the shelf taking up space. Who would want to buy a used copy of this anyways? That's not really in such pristine condition anyways. So I don't know. I'll probably have this sitting around for a while, staring at me on the shelf, and then one day when my shelves are filled, I'll have to make a decision on how to get rid of this. But yeah, what a shame. I think that's it for now, and I'll certainly try to do better to have a more timely upload rate on here. Hopefully now that the job is, I'm getting used to it and calming down a bit, so I'll find some time to do a bit of reading. But yeah, that's it for now. Hope you're all doing okay out there. Bye.